What's going on, FreeMelon family? Welcome back to the FreeMelon Society. I am Eli Martyr. I have the distinct pleasure of having Liana Elizabeth here on the channel with me. Liana, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Eli. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. No, pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine. Liana is a very special guest. She has tons of experience in the game. Okay, so she's a holistic health coach. She's a water fasting coach and consultant, okay, and practitioner for well over a decade. Just unbelievable experience with water fasting, cleansing, healing. She's been dancing since she was a kid. She's a yogi for, if I'm not mistaken, 10 years, over 10 years, over a decade of yoga practice. So she's kind of a Jill of all trades, and she's got some very interesting experiences that I want to explore in this little interview. So, Liana, thank you so much for coming once again. It really means a lot to me to share your time.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. It's going to be an amazing and enlightening conversation for everyone.
Now, I guess with you, I listened to an interview that you had with Blake Herrig on YouTube, and you guys had a phenomenal interview. It was very informative. You covered a lot of ground, and you spent a good deal of time really kind of fleshing out different aspects of your background and spirituality and cleansing and fasting. So, if you guys are interested in, well, what's the topic? What are we talking about today? I haven't even mentioned it. So we're focusing on spirituality, spiritual awakening, and spiritual endowment and enrichment, and its association with cleansing the body, with fasting and raw food, and how all these tie in. So that's the general ballpark that we're playing in today. And your interview with Blake was phenomenal. So if you guys are interested in this, then go check it out. I'll provide a link in the description below, and I highly recommend you watch the interview. And you can get all the background information, all the details on Liana and her journey. So I guess we're going to just kind of continue and maybe flesh out whatever you feel wasn't mentioned, because it's impossible to get everything out in one interview, right?
Exactly.
There's so much to talk about. Yeah. Now, you have. You're one of the values that you have for this community is that you come from a very, very unique set of circumstances that you gained experience from, and not many people have the depth of experience that you have when it comes to how do I say this, exploration of the non-physical world.
Yeah.
Because you had a near-death experience. Effectively, you did die. Yeah, multiple times. And not many people have that experience. And I think it just gives you this very fresh and interesting perspective to share and to elaborate on in terms of what this whole life game is, what this experience is. So that being said, Blake's interview was great. You covered a lot of ground there in terms of your background. But obviously, just for the sake of the audience here, can you just give us a brief as you like, or as detailed, recapitulation of your background in general? Like how did you get started with this? What was the major event that was the catalyst for your exploration into physical, spiritual truth?
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Eli. I just really want to take a moment to appreciate and send gratitude your way. It was so thoughtful and so articulate, and what exactly the best. So what I want to share is, oh my God, like a lot of people that come into this path of we want to call ourselves healers, we want to call ourselves health coaches, if we want to call ourselves even just a healer of ourselves. I mean, the definition of a healer is just someone who has healed their own physical body, and maybe they help other people do that, maybe they don't. But what's often a common theme with everyone I've come to find out is we've often come to our path from suffering, and usually when it's health coaching, that we're specializing in and focusing in, and the expertise that I know both of us share in common. We have so much in common in our paths, this raw food and water fasting and yogic philosophy and everything we share, is that it's coming from a place of we've been through so much physical discomfort and pain ourselves. So there's a transmutation of that suffering. And that's what unlocks our gifts to share with the world. And that's been my journey. In the beginning, I got very, very sick with colitis, ulcerative colitis. I was also in that process with all the medications that they put me on. I went the traditional medical route in the beginning because I didn't know. I didn't have the knowledge. I was born and raised in, the U.S. and, that's the culture there. You turn to drugs, and I was eating a standard American diet. I wasn't always a raw water fasting yogi dancer. I was dancing, but I was eating meat every day, and I was also eating processed foods and protein bars and drinking coffee every day, and eating. My breakfast was like eggs with cheese melted all over it and bacon diced up.
Oh, good God!
Oh my God, yeah.
Woo!
So that's
Hell yeah!
Protein. I was an athlete, I was a total athlete, but because of the philosophy that people are still lost within today, I thought because I was an athlete, I needed high protein. So I just swam myself with animal products and then protein meal replacement bars, and I believed in the Atkins diet in South Beach. So I ended up developing ulcerative colitis and severe IBS. And I'm not really big into labels these days. I don't think that these medical terms or definitions really are comprehensively getting at what's the root cause of disease. But that's what I was diagnosed with. Yeah. And then with that, all the medications they put me on, also being on birth control, I developed a number of things in my physical health, from depression, anxiety, panic attacks, acne, which goes with inflammation of the gut. You get inflammation of the skin. So I looked like I was 3 months pregnant, covered in pimples, and so much physical pain, and having panic attacks, not leaving my house. And this was unfolding when I was living in Jerusalem. I lived in the Middle East for 8 years in Israel, and I went through a spiritual awakening because I was in so much pain and I didn't see the way out of it, and they just kept putting me on more and more drugs. And so that's how I started my journey of natural healing. Is I just got fed up because I was just in a constant state of flare, and I knew that I had to find a way out. And I came across a video of Fully Raw Christina. We all know in our community, the natural hygiene world. She's maybe one of the most famous female raw foodists, I would say. And I saw this video and I was like, something clicked. I was like, we're not meant to be eating cooked food, And then I began my journey of detoxification through eating raw. And in that journey, I started to wake up, because veganism, it's not necessarily the highest vibration. I was eating pastas, I was eating breads, I was eating grains, lots of beans, living in the Middle East, living in Jerusalem. There's hummus on every other street corner, or every single street corner. Like, they brush their teeth with hummus, it seems. So, like, I wasn't healthy as a vegan, and I was sick, So I started to heal, but it wasn't. I had some alleviation of symptoms, but what brought about the full healing for me was when I began fasting. That's when my gut actually healed. And so I was raw for 3 years, and then I began fasting. And then I had the full reboot of my system. And at the same time, because nothing is ever just working in every conversation, there's multiple levels. I was exploring spirituality because I was going through this spiritual awakening, and I started studying yoga, and I was meditating every day, like 2-3 hours per day, doing yoga 3 to 6 hours, sometimes as much as 8 hours, because I was teaching as well and running 2 studios. So I went through all of this at the same time and had the most profound spiritual awakening where it was a complete system shut down, and because I took my fasting practice too far. And I had the mentality, and it's a curse and it's a blessing, Eli, and I know you probably deeply resonate with me. A lot of us that are in these fields, like, we're risk takers and we're also very independent, and we're deeply explorative, and that's part of the reason why we heal. But we can also take things too far because we have this attitude about us, a lot of us do, that are coaches and healers, and that we don't want to follow anyone else. So I thought that I could teach myself everything about fasting, and I didn't need to rely on anyone else for a program or methodology, and I burnt myself out in that way, and it was a blessing in the end because it woke me up fully. I went through a full spiritual awakening with multiple deaths and rebirths and physical deaths, and we can dive in more. I don't want to keep talking. And my initial answer here, we can explore more of this, but yeah, that's essentially what I went through, and I'm so grateful for my journey because here I am now able to share all of it with strength and power and inspiring people in this path, and but also cautioning people to not be too extreme, to not be too radical, and to seek out experienced guidance, and maybe even going to a facility for fasting or working with a coach one-on-one, rather than having that attitude that we can do everything ourselves. It's okay to ask for help, essentially, what I'm trying to say.
Right. It's a shame that sometimes we have to go into really plunge headlong into the depths of infirmity before we start waking up, right? But I guess the silver lining to that is that the best growth comes from stress, from a little bit of stress. I guess nature set it up that way to help us extricate ourselves from whatever conditions we're imposing on our lives. So it's a good thing, but sometimes the depth that we do kind of mire ourselves in is not necessary. We don't need to go into the worst of the worst of the worst.
No.
Before you can intellectually just have some discipline and put the work in ahead of time so that you mitigate all that, and then you can start living a better life before the experience of just the worst of the worst, right? You've had all these experiences, and now your perspective on life has just completely shifted, and you transformed into this phenomenal human being, right? That I'm seeing across my screen right now. Let's just say I'm the average Joe. I've got my kid, I've got the white picket fence, you got a lovely wife, I've got my 9 to 5 job, I've got a subscription to bone broth delivery or whatever. I'm just a normal dude. Okay. Butcher Box. yeah. Butcher Box comes every Monday. Okay. Yeah. Everything is great. My car sucks, but everything else is great. Why on earth would I ever want anything more than that? What possible other advantages could I hopefully gain from reforming my mind, my body, eliminating all of these comfort foods? We have spaghetti and meatballs every evening. There's bread and there's butter, and we use the word protein 24/7. Like it's that, okay, and I'm comfortable with that. Yeah. So what advantages are there in store for me if I'm giving all of that up and cleaning my body and fasting? What the hell? Yeah. Why would any normal person who's comfortable and happy in life want to do any of this?
That's a really great question, Eli. Thank you. I love that you asked that. Yeah, because the average person, they're kind of complacent, right? And they're comfortable.
Right.
And I think we see a lot of that in the world right now, but the truth of the matter is, the thing that really comes to heart and mind right away when you ask me that is, immediately, it's that these people are not sovereign. They're not free. They're products of the system, because they think that they're making their own choices, but the system literally created all of the reality that they are living in. And so there is a lack of awareness of their own sovereign embodiment. And that's like what everything that we're doing, to help people cleanse and purify and elevate their consciousness, is to free them from the matrix and the slavery. Because even if they have a nice life now, even if they have the white picket fence in the house, if people are not aware, the world is going through a massive purge. And with everything that's just come out recently online, I don't want to speak to any of the darkness, but the Epstein, all of that, and all the wars we're in right now, and this push of AI, and this push for more censorship, and essentially these passports that are tracking us, through tech. people are not going to be free. They're losing any sense of freedom, so their lives are going to look dramatically different in 5, 10, 15, 20 years if they don't start to break free of that matrix society. So that's the
Right.
first thing. It's like, and we can't shake people into waking up from that. It's literally dependent on their own soul and their own soul contracts. That's
Right.
predetermined before they get here. They might be an NPC, a non-player character, in this matrix. Like, really, those people are. But the truth is that we are multi-dimensional beings having a temporary human experience, and we came
Yeah.
here for the spiritual journey. We didn't come here to just live in a physical body and this is it. This is the big celebration. This is a temporary phase of our entire experience. So
Right.
even these non-player characters, they've had other lives in other places. We just don't know. They're just so
Yeah.
dramatically asleep because there's a veil of forgetting that's
Right.
been placed upon Earth. So they've,
Yeah.
and I wasn't always conscious of it either. Souls that are meant to do big missions here, they they will go through very intense spiritual awakenings that are going to push them to such a far extreme because they have a big mission. And not
Yeah.
everyone came here to help out the new Earth being born. But there's a few waves for the last like 50 years, big waves of people that have come in to assist. So
Right.
thank you for being part
Right.
of the team, Eli.
Hey. Yeah, we do what you can, right? Yeah. I think it's a tough one because sometimes it helps to have some sort of earth-shattering experience to really snap you out of the stupor.
Yeah.
Um, and, and so without that, people might not even have the perspective. So why am I gonna do any of this hard work? What you like put myself through all these rigors? Like why? It's so it's hard to convince people. There's absolutely a spiritual obligation because we're all going in the same direction whether we know it or not,
Yes.
right? So the life essence, the life flame, it's an ever onward and upward and constant growth and development impetus, and everybody is playing the game.
Yeah.
You can't, in this game you cannot opt out of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to know that you are playing the spiritual game
Yeah.
of higher conscious development, and you might as well contribute to that, because if you try to just throw the cards away or knock over the game board pieces and like, yeah, I'm out of here, I'm going to go do my own thing,
Mm-hmm.
you can't.
Yeah.
You are literally attached with an umbilical cord to the direction of universal life, right? So there are many glories that lie in wait for a person that does put in the discipline, the attention. I would say the attention, the focus, right? What advantages are in store? Everything, everything. And like you said, it's freedom and sovereignty. And that sovereignty, if I'm not mistaken, it works on many different levels. There's like a physical kind of economic, sovereignty, that type of earthly sovereignty, but there's also a sovereignty of your own body and liberation from your own kind of indulgent appetites that you have no control over. It feels like you've got a massive dog, or you have Cerberus on a dog leash. Oh, 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 it's just dragging you everywhere,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That can be controlled and tempered with your mastery. Just like, hey, sit, and that Cerberus monster will sit for you, right? But that takes time, and getting there it's a wonderful thing. But okay, so before I continue, people are going to be curious. All right, so you've gone through all this, and we will touch on what all this is. But you've gone through all of this now. What does your lifestyle look like in terms of just the basics, like diet, eating? What's your general ebb and flow of a day? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Just so people have an idea, have a frame of reference, right?
Yeah. So I again, I'm not big on labels, but just to be, I'll use some labels just so people are
Yeah,
clear. I consider
yeah,
myself to be a raw foodist, fruit based. So high fruit. I do incorporate. I don't subscribe to calling myself fruitarian just because it misleads people, and they
Yeah.
neglect greens and they can neglect over fats, and so I do incorporate those as well to bring balance and strength and endurance to my body. But I eat
Yeah.
a high fruit raw diet where I am subsisting off of mostly mono fruit meals, and
Right.
I do a lot of
Yeah.
salads. I I just also for me, I mean, just personal preference. I'm not really big into sweet. I actually prefer savory. So I can't imagine being raw without doing regular salads and raw pastas and various things like that that just allow me to satisfy that part of my
Mm.
desire for eating. But
Yeah.
I'm a high raw or a high fruit raw vegan, and
Okay.
also with water fasting, I'm fasting periodically at this point. I've done 7.5 months of water only fasting, extended therapeutic, and I've healed my body. I've elevated my consciousness. I've done all those initiations. So at this point, I'm in the maintenance phase. I'm
Mm.
not really a practitioner that subscribes to the never-ending hamster wheel of detoxification, that we're never going to get clean enough and purified enough, because that in itself is part of the disillusionment that a lot of raw
Yeah.
foodists and natural hygienists fall into, the trap of
Mm.
I'm never clean enough. And I
Yeah.
was there once, like guilty.
Mm.
So now I take people and I took myself through this process and I take clients through this process, but there's an end point where we get to a place of maintaining. So
Right.
periodically a
Right.
week of fasting is really good. Periodically a 3-day fast is really helpful, but I don't I don't believe I need to be doing, a month long fast or 2 month long fast or 3 month long fast. It's unnecessary at this point. It's unhelpful for me.
Yeah.
Unless I just
Yeah.
went on some bender and I started to binge on cooked food and I gained a bunch of weight and like, okay, maybe a 21-day fast would really serve me. But at this point,
Yeah.
it's unnecessary, and it would just tax all the muscle mass that I've developed and the healthy
Yeah.
body that I've been able to rebuild. Because when you go through this deep process of cleansing and purifying, you also need to rebuild. You need to rebuild your muscle, and it becomes more and more efficient as you go along. It does.
Mm-hmm.
The body
Mm-hmm.
becomes, especially if you're coming at it from being disciplined. So to kind of answer your question a bit more about like my physical practices, in this 3D Earth experience, being
Mm.
disciplined in your physical fitness is important to maintain the integrity of your muscle mass and tissues and
Right.
tendons and ligaments, and bone density is super important as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been a personal trainer since I was 16, and I've been doing yoga for 15 years, and so I'm very very fit, and so I'm moving every day, and there's a lot of raw foodists and natural hygiene practitioners and water fasting people that, they're the only I was joking about this with our brother Blake. The only exercise they do is just reaching up to grab the orange, and like they're like so skinny and so emaciated, and they have no muscle tone, and that's just it doesn't it's not you can't be healthy without being fit. It's like they're missing the mark there.
Right.
They should
Right.
jump up
Right.
to get the orange. They should climb the tree, and
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
like climb that tree 10 times before you take the orange. Like
Right. Right.
make yourself work for it, essentially.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm joking around, but it's like it's so important to take care of the physical
Yeah.
body, and so when it comes to fitness, getting our heart rate up, every day, doing cardiovascular training, doing muscle building exercises, doing resistance training, maintaining our flexibility, even agility, even our ability to do plyometrics and jumping, and I know this is right up your alley because you're Mr. Stuntman here, so I'm fire right now. But this is also why we're here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Perfect. Perfect. And when you get into the when you get into a place where you are doing mono meals
Yeah.
of whatever fruit meets your fancy, it really, I mean, I don't need to go into more specifics. I mean, I could ask you, okay, when do you eat in the day, or like what's your split?
They can go to my
Guys,
IG for
who
that.
care? Yeah, who cares? Okay,
Yeah.
simple. All
Mhm.
right, just simple. Okay, whether pick a fruit you like, eat it. When you're satisfied, you're satisfied.
Yeah.
And if you need more later on during the day, eat again later on during the day. Whenever you want a salad or whatever it is, have some. As long as you know the basics, the foundation, right? Vegetables, fruits, okay, nuts, then you're fine. Okay, and have enough faith to allow your senses to kind of guide you. Okay, so now you've got this clean body, and you're coming at life with this new perspective, all instigated from these experiences you had when you were going through the fire.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a run-in with death.
Mhm.
Now, I have some questions about your
Yeah.
experience, but first of all, I guess describe what that was.
Mhm.
And you were not conscious for, what was it, like a month? You didn't wake up, like from the time that you went down, you came back to your physical body like a month later. Is that correct?
3 months in total. Two
All
separate
right,
experiences though, but
two separate
yeah,
experiences. Okay,
multiple
okay,
deaths involved in the process.
okay. So, just tell us just briefly what happened to cause that.
Hmm.
And my question for you is, because this has always been a mystery.
Yeah.
Like, what happens at death and after death?
Yeah.
Where do we go? What
Yeah.
happens? So we've always had this fascination. One of my questions for you is, when you had this out of body experience, okay, whatever it was that you were experiencing in that time, or in those times where you weren't present physically,
Hmm.
do you remember what the feeling was? Whatever imagery was there, whatever plane of the astral or higher that you went to,
Yeah.
do you remember a type of feeling, any energy signature? Was there fear? Was there concern? Were there any worldly concerns? Like, did your mind go back to experiences you have here and think, oh, shoot, I have to, whatever, pay that bill. Oh, I didn't settle up this account with, not banking account, but this
Yeah.
matter with this person, right? Did I
Yeah.
did you have worldly considerations when you were in that state, or when you're out of your body, do those things kind of just evanesce and disappear? Was there any fear, concern, or was it just kind of this high of love and gratitude? What was that? So basically, just flesh that out.
I'm writing it down so I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I start to go all metaphysical, I can get sidetracked because it's hard
it
to put this into words. These are
yeah, it's
things
it's
that
it's hard to not to
fun.
not explore all these things,
Yeah.
but yeah, anyway, go
So
ahead.
to satisfy people with more of the mental mind, human desire to understand, like, okay, what made this woman die? um,
Mm.
I so what happened was I was exploring, of course, I said earlier, alluded to it earlier, the realms of water fasting, and I did so without any formal training. I did so with very
Mm.
little research, and I had this big old spiritual ego and belief in myself that I could just go it alone. Which
Mm.
has served me in life in so many ways because I move a lot of energy with that kind of oomph about me. But in this particular situation, with the intensity of the experience, it was to my detriment. But what happened
Mm.
was I passed away two separate earthly experiences, separated out by 2 years. And the first experience was and this wasn't formally diagnosed from the doctors at the hospital because they don't understand this stuff. They just labeled me as catatonic and that I was psychotic and schizophrenic. They labeled me with a bunch of mental illnesses, but I was in a
Mm.
body that wasn't functioning, and I was gone. So I was unable to even open my eyes, and I was emaciated. I was very, very thin. And the reason I
Right.
got that way is because I fasted for 60 days. Way too long. I was desperate to heal. I was
60 days. Oh
60
my
days.
God.
I was desperate to heal,
Yeah.
and in that desperation, yeah. So in that desperation, I drank copious amounts of water, way too quickly. And so the doctors, they don't know what questions to ask. They don't understand natural hygiene. They don't understand what water poisoning looks like. But I had poisoned myself with water, drinking way too fast, way too quickly, and I formed electrolyte imbalance, and it took out my liver and kidneys. And so that's what physically manifested was I had such low electrolyte balance that they had to put me through 12, actually I was scheduled for 15 rounds, but I only made it through 11 rounds of electric convulsive shock therapy. And that's what brought my spirit back into my body because, so that's the first physical answer. The second physical answer is the second time I went for a long extended water fast, I did the proper step, and I went to a fasting center, and that's where you and I met. We met at a fruit festival,
Yeah.
Here in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
We first became friends here at Tanglewood, and Tanglewood's not operating anymore in physical reality, just online with Lauren Lockman. But I went to his fasting center, and I fasted my second time with him, and I went through an even worse experience. And it wasn't, and I'm not going to blame Lauren or his program because actually he did end up teaching me how to do everything right. I went back and I fasted with him twice more after that, after I lost my life the second time. So that's how determined I am. And I stuck with it because I knew, I was like, I need to change not the thing I'm doing, it's how I'm doing it. And not many people would have that kind of like boldness about them, but I just knew I had to go through it again. But the second time it was from kidney failure because my body was predisposed from electrolyte depletion. And I did the fast all perfectly. I followed his protocols. But when it came to the refeed, I was impatient because he kept telling me, he does your stats every day, just like I do with my clients now, where we take all the stats and we go through everything to make sure that you're getting the right amount of water. And what happened was I just wasn't hitting my water quota of what he said I needed. And I was getting impatient, and I was in my refeed. So I finished the fast. I was refeeding, and in my impatience, I started just to chug a glass of water.
I see.
And in the refeed, you're still sensitive. So I had complete kidney failure, complete. And then my liver went, and then I had brain damage, and then my heart stopped. So what happened is I physically died in a hotel in San Jose. On my way back to the U.S., like I was literally in transit back home, and I passed away in a hotel. It was a nice hotel, but I was like underground in an underground room.
Oh.
Well, it was super intense.
At least you were in a nice hotel.
Yeah,
oh wow,
it was
goodness.
A fancy hotel. Like it was actually really nice. Good place to die. But I was in the middle of a bustling city. I mean, I'm in the jungle, but it's San Jose. It's like the biggest capital city of the country. So, you're surrounded by honking cars and buses and whatnot. But so I passed away there, and so that's to give you an idea. And then I went through several deaths in the hospital, and they're having to like resuscitate me and do blood transfusions because of the kidney failure. And it was just it took months to recover my body. Like I fought for my life for months on both of these occasions, and it was really hard, But to answer your second part of the question, what did I feel? I went through so many versions of death, from the physical death to the spiritual process of what happens when you cross over. And my soul I'm an ancient soul, but I have not lived before. It's my very first and last incarnation. It's a very unique experience, but I did a lot of time traveling when I was out of body, so I've seen my whole trajectory. And what I went through was the classic example of going into the tunnel of light, and a lot of people speak to that, and that's the reincarnation trap. That's the matrix system recycling souls. I went through the tunnel of light experience, the first death and the second death. But in the second death, I also went into the void of existence, which is the return to source. To go into the void it's to surrender yourself fully to all of existence, which is the feminine, which is darkness, which is a complete dissolution, disembodiment, like annihilation, I guess you could say. And it doesn't, these aren't like the best words, but there's no other way to put it. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant at all, you know, if you're holding on. And this is something I touched on, you know, quite deeply in my previous interview before. So I won't go into too much detail here, but I'll just say briefly, I held on because part of what you asked me as well is, did I have anything kind of holding me to this experience on Earth? One of the things is my brother came to me, my older brother, his consciousness came, and he said, don't die, don't leave us, you know, and maybe he was trying to save my soul, I don't know, and I've been contemplating who if it really was him or if it was a plant, because these types of things, they can fake, the Matrix can fake any person, can impersonate any voice, and it comes into your head, you know, and you can be, you know, misled, and angels can surround you, which are going to essentially push you in a direction of what they think you need to do. So that's why I held on, and that's why I was in so much pain. I held on, and this is a quantum experience, but the best I can describe it is billions of years. You know, so I experienced my death for billions of years, holding on and holding on and holding on, and there's nothing I went through that's more painful than that, you know, because it's breaking down at the cellular and the atomic level. Like I literally watched and felt my whole body dissolve, and then my consciousness, my psyche, I didn't exist anymore, you know. But that's the full release of the soul, and I got to be fully present for it. Like it's so rare. Right. It's so rare. Like no one has that. Like they typically just let go. They just let go, and they transition and they merge with source. If their soul is in the state of consciousness to go through that, there's a process of getting your soul prepared to merge with all. A lot of souls are still in this process of this. I don't want to necessarily call it an earth school, but that's the easiest way to describe it. Is this is a school, and souls are being, you know, going through this process of these deaths and rebirths to prepare themselves to merge with all, to merge with the Creator. You know, so there's a process that's happening on Earth, but yeah, I just given my soul and the power that I carry and everything that I've gone through, I went straight for it.
Okay, so let's say it's that person who they haven't reached their time yet, but some sort of accident befalls them. Okay, hit by a car or whatever it is, and they leave their body. They start seeing the light, start seeing the tunnel, seeing the light. In that condition, would you say that most people have the consciousness of a choice? You said you can let go. People will want to just let go because it's just this beautiful thing, and I'm just going to surrender and go to the light, right? But is there a choice there? Like, I mean, is there a force of will that can bring you back, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, once you're liberated from the body, whether forcefully or not, are you kind of just so overcome by the feeling of oneness and connection that there's no chance that you're going back, or do you still have some presence of mind to come back and do whatever you need to do incarnate?
That question is so powerful, Eli. Thank you. I'm so happy to be doing this interview with you, because you are such a profound and deep soul, and all the reading and all the knowledge you carry. It's like I was looking forward to this.
Oh, come on. Oh, you're so sweet. No, thank you. No, the pleasure's all mine. Trust me. Trust me. I appreciate having you here.
So to answer you, it's not a choice. And this is why, like, when you asked me the second question about, you know, the average person with a white picket fence and, you know, married and happily kids and all the thing, you know, this is why the spiritual journey is the in my opinion, like, this is where I'm at right now. It's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that matters. It's the journey of the soul. Everything else is just a waste of time. You know, if we're not cultivating our higher consciousness, there is no choice.
Right.
Like, all the
souls, details.
Yeah. All the souls that go to transition when their time is up, they're going to reincarnate into another earth body because they're still in kindergarten. They have to go through all of the levels to ascend and to elevate their consciousness. And they're so infantile that they have to continue to go through that process. So they literally have no option but to go into the tunnel of light. And oftentimes in my first experience when I went through it, like, I literally had what appeared to be a guardian angel taking my hand and walking me into it. That's what happens as well. You literally get walked into it. And that could have been the end of me, but I knew to fight, and I actually reached back into this dimension and picked up a cell phone through my body that was unconscious on the floor and called my husband, and he saved me. But that is what often happens is people, they get taken into the light by these beings that are there to usher you across. And it's very enticing. I mean, the way consciousness works is we're moving into the light, we're growing into the light. Like even moths to a flame, they fly into a flame to their death. It's not necessarily the best thing, but it's better to go through that process if you're unconscious and not aware of your options. The other thing they could do is to go unconscious, and they become a lost soul. Then they become what we often refer to as ghosts or demons or fallen angels. They get stuck here in the fourth dimension, which is one dimension above the 3D dimension, and they often they stay around hovering where they died, and they get trapped there and they're stuck there and they can't break free of it. So it's better for them to go into the light than to fall unconscious and get trapped, in the astral plane. And these souls that get trapped, they're in so much suffering. They're so miserable, and it's often because they were not ready to move into the next experience, and they need to be released, So there's a lot of people, myself included, where we're helping these souls move on, move forward, transition. But the what I spoke to in my previous answer to your last, I think it was the last question, about going into the void of existence, that is the ultimate release of the soul. And that option, it's not like you get to choose it, Eli. Like I didn't choose it. It chose me. Like I had absolutely no choice. Like it literally annihilated me. Like I had to surrender to it. Like, and eventually I gave up completely, and I was like, I went through so much explosions of light, and I went back to the birth of creation. I was there for the literal birth of all of existence in every possible galaxy. I was there for what people often call the Big Bang, and that, and I became one with everything, and I never thought I would come back. Like I thought that was it. But my soul wanted to finish this, because a soul that leaves early, especially through such tragic circumstances, and especially if they came here as a starseed or a light worker, is another. I mean, for people that are maybe more in the spiritual realms, these terms are very common. But we're starseeds, we're light workers. I came here on a mission to help the ascension process of Earth. Because Earth is going through a critical point right now where we're in a massive spiritual war, and we're here to see Earth evolve into a higher consciousness. So I came back here to assist and to embody love.
I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back. The world needs you. You saw okay, so you saw your brother, or at least I don't even know what the right way to describe this is, but I think our minds clothe a spiritual essence or entity in whatever familiar connections you have personally as in your incarnations. So to you, some higher entity might look like your brother. For me, it might look like my father or my mother, right? How subjective are these experiences when you meet someone in the higher realms, in the astral realm, right? So is most of the time what's happening just a higher aspect of your own consciousness just representing itself to you in a certain way? Or is it very often the case that is actually a separate entity that is coming to assist you, kind of like a neighbor sees you struggling with your lawnmower and say, hey, oh, don't just leave it. I got this, right?
Yeah.
Is it that like, so a concrete reality of the astral world, or subjective input that you create?
I'm gonna give you a fun answer because
Okay.
I didn't just have my brother's consciousness come to me. That's just when I died in San Jose, and that's why I suffered so much. And that's why I shared that part of my journey, because I held on in my death experience rather than just
Yeah.
releasing. If you release, it's over
Right.
in 2 seconds. But I held on. I was
Right.
fighting. I was fighting it. You know. So that's the first thing I want to share. But the thing is especially if a soul has gone through a full awakening and enlightenment experience, which means you went into the void of existence, which means you merged with all. You merged with all of creation. You
Mm.
you are all of it. Like everything is you, and everything is also not you. It's like this, where the ocean and the drop. There's all this contrast of everything and nothing. So
Mm.
everything that comes through you or to you or speaks to you or that you meet in other astral planes or other worlds or other dimensional realities, heaven and hell. I was also in heaven and also in hell. All these different things. It is all you. And
Right.
it's such a mind, for lack of a better word, fuck. It's such a it's so the human mind can't comprehend it, and like even as I say it, it just like it makes me uncomfortable, but this is the reality we live in. Like I am you and you are me. Like there is no separation. Like we're all one.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all one.
Right.
And so I've
Right.
met, to answer you a little deeper, like I've met interdimensional travelers that are like embodiments of what appears to be humans. I've met
Mm-hmm.
aliens. I was abducted by aliens. I was tortured by the aliens that are running the Matrix show here. Like they tortured my soul in horrific ways for very long periods of time. I suffered immensely because they try to break you. They were trying to break me, but I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't let it happen. And
Yeah.
I've met angels, and what appeared to be my guardian angel, and teams of angels, and relatives on the other side. And these experiences, it's not like being in a dream. So we can have like these lucid
Okay.
dream experiences where a conscious soul, we're not just like going to bed in la la land when we sleep at night. We're often doing a lot of deep work and healing, but what can happen is we can astral travel, we can astral project, we can lucid dream,
Mm.
and you can have a physical experience in dream state in other realities. And so like I'm traveling all the time now. Like I'm constantly
Mm-hmm.
working, at night. And helping evolve consciousness of the planet. I mean, we're it's 24-hour job once you reach a certain level of consciousness. Like it doesn't ever stop,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. Like, but we signed up for this. But
Right.
yeah, to answer you more clearly, like when I've been through these experiences and even time traveling, I was physically present, Eli. It's not just like my consciousness was projected. I physically traveled to these other realms. I was physically there in the future.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
more memories out of Earth and in the future than I do in the 30 something years I've been here in my little human avatar. Like I have more memories of being in other places, and
Mm.
physically being
Yeah.
there, and going through
Yeah.
physical pain, even embodied.
Right.
So it's hard to explain.
And sometimes you might never know. We might not have the consciousness to be able to accurately discern
Yeah.
whether there was a difference between some sort of concrete entity or our own subjective higher consciousness. Or is there even a difference, right? There might not be a huge difference because it's all connected, right? In that state, in that higher realm, you are intimately connected to the network,
Mm-hmm.
to the array of reality, and everything is connected to that network.
Mm-hmm.
Even something like time, the phenomenon of time, of temporal existence that we experience
Mm-hmm.
day to day here on earth, that allows us to record memories properly. Like we need this phenomenon of time,
Yeah.
but there it doesn't exist in the same way. So I've had that experience as well. I've spent what I thought was weeks in some other world, only to wake up 4 hours later. I'm like,
Exactly.
and it was
Yeah.
just confusing as heck, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm ready to start this new life that I've been thrown into, and I was integrating it.
That might be a life that you're going to live in the future. Like you literally could have
It's
traveled.
very possible.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there was one in particular. It was I was living in a village, and
Yeah.
I was being schooled in occult science by an old lady, and just this beautiful elderly lady. Just oh my god, just oozing with spiritual essence. And I remember every day I was going to bed. I remember going into my room and sleeping and relaxing for the evening and getting up in the morning and then going to occult practice and spiritual channeling and physical object manipulation. It was like a retreat. And then I'm integrating into this lifestyle, and then I wake up and it's 4 hours later back in my physical bed. I'm like, it was so confusing. I'm like, uh, what am I here? I start trying to do the things I was doing out of body. I'm like, what the hell? What happened to my powers? They're not
Yeah,
working right now.
like, why can't I make this thing
It's a
levitate?
trip.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's a trip. And now, if us in describing this, it inspires in any way a curiosity for you to experience these, let me tell you guys, for the audience listening, there is, okay, I'm going to be definitive about this. There is no place on earth that you can go to, no vacation that you can take, no cruise that you can take, no drug that you can take that rivals a natural, holistic, spiritual experience out of body where you connect to the oneness of everything. You will never forget these experiences. They will shake you to the core. They'll send a chill up your spine, and they will make you want to delve further into an understanding of your metaphysical reality. Once you have one of these experiences, that's typically all it takes to shake your foundations up a little bit and make you realize that you are in a much, much more vast game than the world makes it out to be.
Yeah.
There's true spiritual value here. Now, I have to respect your time, and I don't want to make this too long. If I were to ask a rapid fire question, okay, as much as this is not a rapid fire question, it does take time to flesh out. But for the sake of brevity, if I'm tying this down back to fasting and raw food dieting and eating, right? Okay, so now we're talking about cleansing the physical body. All right, what is fasting doing to your physical body that assists and facilitates and enables these types of experiences? What's it doing that you aren't getting from just regular healthy eating, right? And in a nutshell, I know that's almost an impossible task, but you're not human. You're a superheroine,
yeah,
so
exactly.
somehow you can do it.
To answer it as simply as possible, we literally are becoming the light. We're literally enlightening ourselves at the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So and when it comes to fasting and cleansing, that it addresses all of it, but especially the physical. And to answer it as simply as possible, we literally are becoming the light. We're literally enlightening ourselves at the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So and when it comes to fasting and cleansing, that it addresses all of it, but especially the physical. And part of the veil of forgetting, part of the control system, whatever's holding all of this in lockdown is that people have forgotten their multidimensional selves, and part of that forgetting is they messed with our DNA. There was an alteration that was done to human DNA which upgraded us but also stopped us from being able to access all of our DNA, which is the higher and also even like in the way we're educated, it's all just lies. I mean, the atomic particles, we learned it in school of chemistry. Like there's several elements that have been removed, because these elements that were removed are pointing to our DNA that is holding the crystalline light structure. This was hidden. So much has been hidden. But that is what we're doing, is that we're unlocking our DNA, we're anchoring in crystalline DNA, and we're able to then have more and more of these experiences and become I'm not a follower of any religion, but when we refer to Christ in this way, it's Christ consciousness is to become godlike. It's not necessarily a promotion of Christianity, but we become Christ-like, we become godlike, and
Yeah.
that's what we came here to do. So things
Right.
like all the clairs, the clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizant, telepathy, being able to peer into other worlds, through what do you call it? They do it in the military now. Like there's many people that are employed in the military where they peer into other worlds, and just drawing a blank of what it's called right now.
Right. Remote viewing, I think
Yeah.
they've been messing around with remote viewing for many years now. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a real thing. The military understands the value of this kind of thing, right?
All this stuff's real, but they
Yeah.
don't want people to have access to these skills, because once people
Right.
start to awaken and unlock their DNA
Yeah.
and become multidimensional, you can't control us anymore.
Exactly.
Because like
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
cannot, once a soul has gone through such a profound experience, it's like you can no longer, and that's why sovereignty is the whole conversation. When you become
Right.
sovereign, you become free, and then you
Right.
cannot be controlled anymore. So that's the whole
Right.
game. Because, and just to put a fine line there, it's like, okay, so people might be wondering right now, why are they doing this? I know you didn't ask me that, but I'll just give a little extra in my answer. They're doing this because there's an energy harvest. Earth is being harvested of our God consciousness, because the beings that have been, and I met these are the beings that tortured me too. They are harvesting human life force, because they themselves
Right.
fell from God, and they don't have direct access to God, so they derive that through our energy. So with what just happened in the world, with the release of all those files of the man that we won't name, and all the wars, all the suffering, and all the babies of eating babies or whatever, all this craziness, every time these things are happening,
Yeah.
like cha-ching in the lower satanic, realms. They're literally
Right.
harvesting this life force. And so they don't want humans to have access to our multidimensional selves, because they won't be able to harvest our energy anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said before, you're kind of reclaiming the sovereignty of your mind. What am I doing with my hands? Your mind,
Yes.
and B, your body, right? Because your body can become trapped and mired in the encumbrances of your lifestyle sins,
Yes.
and your mind can be equally weighed down by the vain, nonsensical superstitions that out of control science and just worldly broken philosophies have. You onboard these as intellectual, spiritual, mental nutrition, and it does the same thing to corrupt your mind as the physical impurities do for your body. And so fasting, if I'm hearing this right, it's a way to kind of, well, I think you said it too at some point, maybe not in this interview, in a different one, just to fast track.
Yes.
Um, I'm going to put fast track in quotes. It's not that it's fast.
Yeah.
It's just that it's much more expedient than not doing that, right?
Yes.
But this is a lifestyle approach. It's not, you're not going to wake up in the lotus position floating, right? That's not
I've
going to
done it,
happen.
but
Yeah, of course you have. Get out of here. All right, make me feel bad. Um, okay, so okay, I have just a series of super rapid fire yes or no questions.
hey, I love you.
Okay, but before that, I have probably my most important question. Because oh God, I can't figure this out. How much alligator cartilage do I need to eat every day to rebuild my muscles after a workout? I can't figure it out. Like, is it 80 grams? Is it 180? How much alligator cartilage do you eat in a day?
0.
Oh, you do. It's 0. Oh,
Yeah,
shoot.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
No,
Okay. Well.
I've been vegan for 17 and a half years, and I will never eat any animal products again. Period.
Oh, emu pancreas? No.
No, not happening.
No. All right. So I was wrong about that. Okay. Just a couple quick questions. You can give me a yes, no, or requires a little bit of context to get a super short answer. Can everybody have out of body experiences?
Yes.
regardless of what their diet is.
Yes, they
Yes.
can, but if they embark on a road of purification and expansion of consciousness, if they're not going to do any drugs, I mean, you can take
Right.
LSD or mushrooms and think you're having an experience, but to do it naturally, yeah, there's a process of cleansing and healing.
Right. Okay. Okay. Plant medicines. Is it better to use plant medicines to have out of body experiences, or better to just abstain from them? Yes, no, some
Abstain,
context.
definitely abstain, because all that I went through was done entirely sober, and way more profound,
Perfect. Yeah.
way more robust. The full journey of the soul,
Okay.
no drugs involved. That being said, I have
Right.
done ayahuasca once. I have dabbled with mushrooms after I went through everything, because I was to go through what I went through, severe PTSD, to put it bluntly, severe
Right.
PTSD. Lots of trauma I had to heal, so I turned to plant medicines later to integrate, but very mild introduction to them. I scratched that itch and I realized it doesn't work for me. These drugs take you down. They lower your vibration, and people don't know that.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
like a lot of, just to put a fine line here as well, I'm not a supporter of people that go too far in the medicine path, because I know several people in my life that have literally lost their minds. They've literally gone crazy, and this is happening
Yeah.
because Westerners are abusing these traditions that are ancient, where the only people in the tribe were the most seasoned, experienced journeyers. These were experiences that are so deeply sacred. It wasn't available to everyone. It wasn't available to all the villagers. Only the ones that were meant
Right.
to receive the information to take the whole tribe forward. So Westerners are abusing this stuff now. So a long answer for your short fire question, but it's
No, that's okay.
a
That's
lot.
okay. Sometimes I know it's hard because I'm asking pretty seasoned questions. Let's just say. Okay, last one or two. If somebody has a no. If somebody has a conscious astral projection in a clean state, is there any chance that they can get disconnected from the physical and accidentally die? Is that a fear that anybody needs to have? Or like, can it happen? Are there circumstances, or is that not something that usually someone would need to worry about?
No, and unless their body is in such a poor state of health and they go through some accident, or they've been fasting for far too
Mm,
long, there has to be a breakdown of the physical body. You're going to eventually wake up in your body, and
mm,
it can
okay.
feel like you died or you went somewhere else, but it was only, like, again, like you said, 4 hours on the clock.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Can you expect to have a deeper connection if you clean up the diet? Right? Get rid of the animal products, the processed foods, the cooked foods, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something you can expect, or does it depend on the person? Is it more just a strong mind regardless of what you eat? That's not even a yes no question. Is it true that you clean up your diet and you get
Yes.
more spiritual potential?
Yes, it's true. And there are very few people that have enough spiritual power of their mind being able to manipulate their physical reality, irrespective of what they're treating their physical vessel like. There's very few people that are
Okay.
in
Yeah.
that state of consciousness, and
Okay.
it's a handful. Like, truly, most people need to go through the process of respecting the physical body, cleansing and healing it, purifying it, because it affects every aspect of our being.
I guess last question. What's your phone number? I'm kidding. That's just a joke.
You have it, but we won't share it to everybody else.
I like keeping people on their toes. What the hell? Why did you just say that? This has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for answering my questions and for sharing your time. I think we're gonna have to wrap things up now. If there are some things that you wanted to explore that we didn't really get to, then of course we can have you back. But for now, I think that's good. That's tons for people to mill over. Liana, I appreciate your time. Guys, if you like interviews like these, if you like the content on the channel, then of course subscribe to the FreeMelon Society, and there's going to be more in the future. I'm going to put all of Liana's information in the description. So if you want to hear more about her story, then definitely check out everything that she's got to offer. If anything, just watch the interview with Blake Herrick on his YouTube channel. It's a great interview, and then you can carry on from there. So thank you again, and that's going to be it for now. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time here on the channel. Boom. Boom. Whack. Crack. Later, guys. Perfect. Okay, let's stop this.
That was